A McLaren up front, a Sauber in second place, and Ferrari, well, Ferrari is struggling. The single practice session here in Austin at the US Grand Prix has completely shaken up what we expected for the weekend. Lando Norris set the fastest time, but the big and perhaps biggest surprise of the day was Nico Hulkenberg, putting the Sauber in a position that no one, absolutely no one imagined. And meanwhile, Max Verstappen, the four-time world champion, seemed to be struggling with his car. Let's break down exactly what happened in this busy session at the Circuit of the Americas. We only had 1 hour of practice before sprint qualifying, and the track was hot, sitting at 43 degrees Celsius or 109 degrees Fahrenheit. Right away, we saw Verstappen leading the pack out on the hard tires, the C1 compound, which was the favorite for the first 30 minutes. Red Bull looked good in these early stages, with Max and Yuki Tsunoda running first and second, closely followed by Norris. But the ones really suffering on those tires were the Racing Bulls drivers. Both Isack Hadjar and Liam Lawson were fighting the car, with the rear end snapping out in the medium to high-speed corners. Hadjar even took a few trips through the escape areas. But that calm didn't last long. Lewis Hamilton, now in his Ferrari, took the top spot, clocking a 134.357. And he did it while complaining on the radio that the throttle pedal was slippery. That time was half a second quicker than Verstappen's. But right after, the session was interrupted. Red flag. 20 minutes in, debris on the track at turn 19, which appeared to have come off Lance Stroll's Aston Martin, forced a 5-minute stoppage. And honestly, that break came at a great time for McLaren. Lando Norris was in the garage precisely for suspension tweaks on his MCL 39. Aston Martin also took the opportunity to make some front suspension changes to Stroll's car. If the work on Norris and Stroll's cars seemed routine, the news at Williams was terrible. Carlos Sainz was called into the pits with a clear order from his engineer: do not push. Williams confirmed that a gearbox issue had been spotted on the Spaniard's car. End of practice for him. Sainz completed only 8 laps, all on the hard tire, and was ruled out for the remainder of the session. This is a disaster for a sprint weekend where there's only one practice. Midway through the session, the order was Hamilton, Verstappen, Russell, Piastri, and Tsunoda, but it seemed like the teams were more focused on long-run pace than on lap times. We also saw Haas's Esteban Ocon run into trouble. He went straight on at turn 11, ended up in the gravel, and radioed in that he had some sort of brake issue. It was an uncontrollable lockup. And Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes didn't have an easy time either. He was blocked at the apex of turn 20, now named Mario Andretti corner, by Alex Albon, and the Italian was clearly annoyed on the radio. With 17 minutes remaining, the track fell silent. Everyone returned to the pits to prepare for qualifying simulations. George Russell was the first out on the medium C3 tire, and soon after, Verstappen and Tsunoda came out on softs. Russell jumped to the top, but was quickly beaten by Tsunoda. Then, the four-time champ arrived. Max Verstappen simply smashed Tsunoda's time, setting a 133.648, almost 9/10 faster. Red Bull looked dominant. But wait, Fernando Alonso with the Aston Martin beat Verstappen's time by 9 thousandths. Piastri slotted into third. And then Nico Hulkenberg, confirming the Sauber's potential we saw earlier, set the third fastest time. But the star of practice was Lando Norris. The McLaren driver did a 133.329, over 3.5 tenths clear of everyone. A spectacular time. The catch? TV footage suggested he might have exceeded track limits at turn 19. In practice, that's just a warning, but it's an alert. While McLaren was flying, with Piastri joining his teammate up front, though .279's back, Verstappen was on the radio complaining about bottoming. The proof of this was a big snap from Tsunoda in the first sector, which ruined the Japanese driver's final push lap. And as the checkered flag fell, one final surprise. Nico Hulkenberg popped his Sauber into second place, just a quarter of a second off Norris and 200ths behind Piastri. So, the summary of this lone practice was Norris first, Hulkenberg second, Piastri third, Alonso fourth, and Verstappen only fifth. Russell was seventh, Hamilton eighth. But what about the other Ferrari? Charles Leclerc was last. He didn't even get to set a performance lap, encountering a late technical issue that seemed to prevent him from downshifting. A terrible start to the weekend for Ferrari and for Sainz's Williams. This practice session left us with more questions than answers. Is McLaren really this strong? Did Sauber find some magic? Is Red Bull suffering or just sandbagging? We're going to analyze all of it. But first, if you're like us and don't miss a thing in Formula One, join our community. Subscribe here to Formula News USA and hit that notification bell. That way, you won't miss any analysis and you'll be helping our channel grow. Also, leave us a like and, just as importantly, comment down below telling us what city you're watching from. We love to see how far our content is reaching, and your comments are absolutely vital for the YouTube algorithm to recommend this channel to more people. Let's continue, because the sprint qualifying came right after, and it was dramatic. After that crazy practice session, with McLaren at the front and Ferrari at the back, sprint qualifying was our first real chance to see who was truly fast at the Circuit of the Americas. And what we saw was Max Verstappen, the four-time champ, showing why he can never be underestimated. He may not be leading the championship this year, he's the dark horse, but he put impossible pressure on the McLaren drivers by grabbing a fantastic pole position for the sprint. He toppled the two orange cars and will start from the front. Let's go straight to SQ3, the final decisive part. 8 minutes on the clock, mandatory soft tires for everyone. In practice, this means 1, maybe 2 flying laps, and that's it. The soft tire doesn't last much more than that. Mercedes' George Russell and the Williams duo of Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon were the first out, trying to take advantage of the clear track. Russell logged a 132.388, just 23 thousandths clear of Sainz. His lap wasn't perfect, the car got squirrely in turn 1, but it was enough to set a benchmark. But the benchmark that mattered was still to come. Nico Hulkenberg, who had already shocked everyone in practice, was next. He set a purple first sector, the fastest of anyone, and took provisional pole from Russell with a 132.645, almost a quarter of a second faster. The Ferraris of Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, who struggled so much in practice, once again failed to make an impression. They didn't even get close to the top times. Then the favorites hit the track. Lando Norris of McLaren did what was expected. He clocked a 132.214 and took the top spot. It looked like McLaren would confirm their FP1 pace. But seconds later, Max Verstappen crossed the line. With a 132.143, he snatched it away from the British driver by just 71 thousandths. An imperious lap with a stellar third sector. That's where Verstappen secured the pole. Oscar Piastri, with the other McLaren, couldn't match the pace of the top two. He was almost 4/10ths down on Verstappen's time, which is an eternity in a pole fight. This pole for Verstappen is crucial. If he can capitalize on this starting position in the sprint, he can take important points away from the two McLaren drivers in the championship. And who showed up right behind? Nico Hulkenberg, once again. He finished in 4th place, half a second off Verstappen, but ahead of George Russell and Fernando Alonso. A sensational result for Sauber. Carlos Sainz, recovering from his gearbox issue, managed a good 7th place for Williams. He'll start alongside Lewis Hamilton, who was only 8th. Alex Albon, with the other Williams, was 9th, and Charles Leclerc in the other Ferrari rounded out the top 10, a full second off the pole time. Ferrari is still in trouble in Austin. But to understand how this top 10 was formed, we need to go back to SQ2. The second part of qualifying used the medium tires, and the fight was intense. Verstappen was the first to set a fast time with a 133.163, but Norris immediately responded, going just over a 10th clear. Piastri latched in right behind, showing McLaren's strength. The tension was saved for the final minutes. 4 drivers opted for a single run at the end. Lawson moved up to 11th, but had his lap deleted for exceeding track limits at turn 19. He was furious on the radio, complaining that a car was in the middle of the track. Hajar's time wasn't enough, and neither was Kimi Antonelli's. In the end, Leclerc and Hamilton managed to improve at the last second and secured their spots in SQ3. The eliminated drivers in SQ2 were Kimi Antonelli in 11th, Ishaq Hajar in 12th, Pierre Gasly in 13th, Lance Stroll in 14th, and Liam Lawson, who ended with no time set, in 15th. Mercedes again showing mixed performance, with Russell advancing and Antonelli getting knocked out. We saw Max's pole and the strength of McLaren and Sauber in SQ3, but the first part of sprint qualifying, SQ1, was where the real drama unfolded. It was a session marked by strategic errors, intense traffic, and frustration for several drivers, including a surprising mistake from Red Bull. First, the good news. Remember how Carlos Sainz at Williams and Charles Leclerc at Ferrari barely ran in practice due to technical issues? Well, both teams did a fantastic job and managed to fix the cars in time. Sainz was able to take part in qualifying after Williams repaired his gearbox, and Ferrari also solved the problem on Leclerc's car. In SQ1, all drivers were mandated to use the medium tire. On the first runs, Verstappen was fastest, with Lewis Hamilton right behind, just 86 thousandths slower. The McLaren duo was a tenth further back, with Piastri ahead of Norris. And Kimi Antonelli at Mercedes, who had a quiet practice, responded well, setting the 5th fastest time and the fastest middle sector of anyone at that point. But the real tension was in the final minutes. Who was in the drop zone? Surprisingly, Charles Leclerc. The Ferrari driver was in the bottom 5, along with Sauber's Gabriel Bortoleto, Haas's Oliver Behrman, Alpine's Franco Colapinto, and Yuki Tsunoda. The pressure was immense. Leclerc did manage to escape elimination. He put in a lap that moved him up to 13th. And he got lucky. On his flying lap, he hit traffic in the final corner but managed to complete the time anyway. The one who didn't have the same luck was Yuki Tsunoda. And here we see a rare and bizarre error from Red Bull. Tsunoda was released from the pits with only 1 minute and 46 seconds left on the clock. For context, the fastest lap of the session was a 1:33.224. It was obvious the timing was tight. The Japanese driver came out amidst several other cars that were also released late, creating chaos in the first sector. He tried to carve his way through, accelerating past others preparing for their laps, but it was no use. The clock hit 0 as he was entering the final corners. He didn't even get a chance to open a fast lap. The result of this Red Bull miscalculation is that Tsunoda will start the sprint in 18th. His frustration was clear on the radio, questioning the team's timing. The other eliminated drivers in SQ1 were Oliver Behrman in 16th, Franco Colapinto in 17th, Tsunoda in 18th, and Esteban Ocon in 19th. And in last place, the Brazilian Gabriel Bortoleto. Bortoleto's debut day at the Circuit of the Americas was one to forget. The Sauber driver, who is subbing for Bottas this weekend, was the only one not to set a valid time in SQ1. It was a sequence of problems. On his first flying lap attempt, Gabriel exceeded track limits and the lap was deleted. With the clock ticking down, he had to pit and prepare for one last desperate attempt. On that second attempt, he was one of the victims of the intense traffic that also caught out Tsunoda. With several cars driving slowly, positioning themselves for their own laps, Bortoleto couldn't find clear track to set a competitive time. He was so compromised he didn't even complete the lap and return to the pits. With no time set, he starts 20th and last. So, with the sprint grid set, what does this crazy Friday in Austin really tell us? We have a 4-time champion, Max Verstappen, starting on pole, but he complained bitterly about the car bottoming out in practice. We have Lando Norris beside him with a McLaren that looked like the fastest car on track in FP1 but was beaten by 71 thousandths when it counted. And we have the biggest surprise in recent memory, Nico Hulkenberg, putting the Sauber in 4th. On the flip side, we have Ferrari with Hamilton in 8th and Leclerc in 10th, and Yuki Tsunoda's Red Bull way back in 18th because of a bizarre team error. Let's analyze what to expect from the sprint and the rest of the weekend. The fight at the front will be direct, Verstappen versus the 2 McLarens. Max's lap in SQ3 was impeccable, especially in the final sector. He found the time there. But McLaren has a very strong race pace. Norris led FP1, and Piastri wasn't far behind. The question is, will the bottoming issue Verstappen reported in practice affect his race pace? If the car is bouncing that much, he'll destroy his tires. McLaren, on the other hand, looked more comfortable. Norris will have to be aggressive at the start. He knows this is his best chance to beat Verstappen, as overtaking the Red Bull on track is another story. And we can't forget Piastri in 3rd. He's in the perfect position to play the team game or even attack the front two if they fight too hard into turn 1. Now, let's talk about Nico Hulkenberg. What was that? Second place in FP1, fourth on the sprint grid? Is this real? Did Sauber bring updates? Or was it a combination of a perfect lap from the German and the specific track conditions? On a sprint weekend with only one practice, some teams nail the setup right away, and others get it badly wrong. Sauber seems to have nailed it. It's highly unlikely he has the pace to hold off the Mercedes, Ferrari, and Aston Martin cars behind him for long, but starting P4 gives him a golden opportunity to score precious points in the sprint. It's a fantastic story. The team that got the setup badly wrong, apparently, was Ferrari. Lewis Hamilton was fastest in FP1 on hard tires, which is a great sign for Sunday's race. But in qualifying, on mediums and softs, the car disappeared. 8th for Hamilton and 10th for Leclerc, who also had technical issues, is way below expectations. They'll have to use the sprint almost as a test session to try and understand what went wrong and how to save the Grand Prix on Sunday. In the midfield, George Russell starts 5th, a solid spot for Mercedes. But the recovery of the day belongs to Carlos Sainz. After missing all of FP1 with a gearbox problem, starting 7th with the Williams is an excellent result. He showed speed and saved the team's weekend, at least for now. Down at the back, the situation is sad for Tsunoda and Bortoleto. Starting 18th and 20th in the sprint means the short race will be a nightmare. They don't have the pace to move up much. For Tsunoda, it's immense frustration, caused by a team error. For Bortoleto, it's a tough baptism by fire on his debut. This day in Austin proved once again just how unpredictable Formula 1 is. And that's why we love this sport. What did you think of the day? Will Verstappen cruise to victory in the sprint, or can Norris take the lead at the start? And Hulkenberg, can he hold that position? Let us know your opinion down in the comments. Your participation is fundamental for our channel. As a non-monetized channel, we rely completely on your engagement. When the YouTube algorithm sees you commenting, it understands you're engaged and recommends our video to more Formula 1 fans. So your comment truly helps us grow. And don't forget to tell us which city you're watching from. We love seeing how far Formula News USA is reaching. If you enjoyed this complete breakdown, smash that like button. And if you're not part of our community yet, what are you waiting for? Subscribe now and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single thing from the world of Formula 1. This is the single best way to support the channel and helps us immensely to keep growing and bringing quality content to you.